got 50,000. I got 50,000. This is a sample. Oh, guys, I feel like Cotton Hill times 1,000. Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about South Park. Or more specifically, the episodes that have aged the worst. South Park is a show all about satirizing the best and worst parts of society. As a result of being made 6 days in advance, many of their episodes have stood the test of time, especially compared to the competition. Margaritaville taught me all about the recession. I was an 8-year-old when it happened. To me, life pretty much went on. Best Friends Forever and Quintuplets 2000 summarized important conflicts during their time, while also making fun of all the participants involved. However, not every episode is a standout. Sometimes, if you leave an episode out in the sun, it starts to smell like rotten lutefisk. And unless you're Minnesotan, most people hate lutefisk. Albeit, I've never had it, but I know it's terrible because I was told it by TV. Therefore, in honor of reaching such an important milestone, we are going to talk about the top 10 South Park episodes that have aged the worst. Hopefully I can come up with a better title. But first, let's get to the honorable mentions. Honestly, I thought this section would have been longer, but I could only pick 2 episodes. The first is Butters' very own episode. You might be asking, oh but Kitty, is it really that bad? The episode is hilarious. It was one of the first times Butters got the spotlight and introduced us to Linda and Steve and Chris. And yeah, I agree. I love this episode. The intro is really catchy. Sometimes I even listen to it when I write a script. But there's the subplot. Butters' parents believed that they've killed him, or rather, Linda killed him. Steve and Chris just wants to protect his wife, and to avoid jail time, blame his murder on some Puerto Rican guy.
Mrs. Dodge, what did the kidnapper look like?
Puerto Rican.
Was he tall? Short?
He was average Puerto Rican height.
Oh god, I hope it's not my father. Of course, since Butters is a middle-class white boy, the public eats it up with a spoon. Wait. Have they done an episode on missing white woman syndrome? That's practically a gold mine. Turns out they're not the only people who were wronged by some Puerto Rican guy. There was Congressman Gary Condit, the Ramseys, and O.J. Simpson.
And we realized the man that murdered your son must be the same person that killed our daughter.
Yeah, because we certainly didn't do it.
No. Oh, no.
This episode was made a couple of years later. I could see Steve and Chris and Linda talking to Casey Anthony instead of Gary Condit. I needed a Google search to know who he even was. At the end of the episode, spurned on by Butters, Steve and Chris comes clean to the world about the lie, while also making sure to do this.
People all over town would be saying things like, "You know goddamn well what happened to your kid, so stop acting like victims, you murdering murderers! Confess! Liar! Confess!"
The thing is, a few years after this episode premiered, evidence came to light that unlike the Stotches, 3 out of 4 of these people might have actually been wronged by some Puerto Rican guy and or telling the truth. New evidence has exonerated the Ramseys, and while Gary Condit had an illicit affair with Chandra Levy, sorry I don't want to get her name wrong, he wasn't responsible for her death.
I spoke with the FBI and some Puerto Rican guy has just made their #1 most wanted. Oh good, maybe now they'll catch him.
This is one of the post-movie episodes Matt and Trey regret, and they actually went as far as to apologize for it years later. They regret this episode immensely, and they're upset they did not get to do this sooner, because Patsy Ramsey died of ovarian cancer before they got the chance. Getting an apology from these guys is huge, which is why it's included in the video, just not on the main list. The second candidate is my future self and me. Honestly, I don't think this episode has aged that badly, sort of, but I still want to talk about it. I love the lesson that if you want a kid not to do something, be direct with them and honest. Don't scare them.
Well, son, pot makes you feel fine with being bored, and it's when you're bored that you should be learning some new skill or discovering some new science or being creative.
I really, really wish you just would have told me that from the beginning.
Question. How much did they spend on the future people? I mean, you're basically hiring a guy to live with you for at least a week and stay in character 24/7. Imagine how much money that would have cost. Good thing Randy, at this point in time, is still a geologist. The only reason I included is because the episode is kicked off by Stan and the boys discovering a joint, and Randy and Sharon are terrified that Stan will become a pothead.
Look, it was fake in the future, too!
Looks like you better really watch out for marijuana, huh, Stan?
But considering the newer seasons, I could never see this happening. Randy would be as happy as a clam. Oh, Stan, you're trying the family business. Sharon would obviously be upset, but it could be like the school shooting episode, where everybody acts like she's crazy. Regardless, the reason I included this episode isn't just related to integrity. Most people nowadays have laxer attitudes towards the devil's lettuce. Obviously, you would not let kids have it, but I think most people know that pot isn't gonna kill brain cells or make you murder a truck full of babies, nor is it a gateway to stronger substances. I guess you could still do this plotline, just substitute pot for, say, crack or coke or meth or prescription pills. Basically anything besides pot, it doesn't matter. Anyway, on with the show. Starting with...
Look, can't we skip all this and just make pot legal? Everyone is just abusing this medicinal system anyway. It's ridiculous.
What's ridiculous about it?
Once again, this episode is weird to watch in hindsight. I remember hating it as a child, but think it's hilarious as a grown-up. Carmen learns that the South Park KFC has closed and has been turned into a medicinal marijuana shop.
Openly selling pot, for reals?
Sure. New state laws say it's okay.
All right! I love the future!
And apparently this actually exists. To make matters worse, Colorado passed a law that bans the sale of fast food in low-income areas, and as KFC solely targeted low-income areas, KFC is basically banned in the state of Colorado. Cartman is upset. Oh, that's how I feel. There used to be a KFC by my house, but they closed it and now it's a bank. In the process, KFC becomes an underground drug ring of sorts and leads into the main plot. Think Scarface meets chicken pot pie. I'm not really going to talk about it here because it's fine on its own. Instead, I want to talk about the subplot. Once again, my future self and me only got an honorable mention because you could still swap out the joint with something else. Here, it's not that simple. Randy is as happy as a pig in a pot field when he finds out the news. Makes sense. To his surprise, he finds that he can't go to the shop willy-nilly. He needs a medical card. After all, this was 2010.
You need a reference from your doctor to show it's necessary.
Oh, that's dumb.
Wait, this was 2010? Only 2010? That was 13 years ago! Damn, things have changed! And I'm old. Unfortunately, Randy's doctor won't give him a prescription because he doesn't really need it. He's not sick or suffering.
AIDS patients, cancer patients, people going through chemo. The THC helps them eat and take the pain. You are in fine shape.
So go to a psychiatrist, Randy. You can claim one for mental health problems, like depression or anxiety. I know a few people who did that. Since this is South Park and mental health stigmas have only recently begun to be broken, Randy tries to give himself cancer in order to obtain weed. As he isn't getting results fast enough, he does this.
Oh, hey, Stan, could you grab me a beer? Score!
Randy, be careful. What if Russell Crowe sees you? And what if he brings Tugga? The remaining men of the town follow suit, but there's a little problem. More like a big problem. Two big problems. Their thingy swells so much that they can't get inside the store. And legally, they can't sell the product outside. That means nobody gets pot.
Look, I'm starting to feel kind of stupid. Can I please get high?
They protest, but the doctor and the lawmakers come to a decision.
It's no coincidence that when this building changed, the rise in cancer went up. Don't you see? The KFC was keeping people healthy.
Sadly, marijuana is banned for a few more years, but KFC is reinstated. That's right, that's better. Popeyes is so much more expensive, right? The reason this episode is so low is because it talks about an issue that nowadays does not have the same impact. Like I said above, marijuana isn't such a big deal, depending on where you live, of course. Laws and attitudes are starting to get laxer, and more states are legalizing it or decriminalizing it. Interestingly, Colorado was one of the first states to legalize for reasons other than medicinal. Therefore, a few seasons later, Randy would follow suit and own and operate his own pot farm, to much contention depending on who you ask. However, the episode's lesson is still important. Banning something gives it more power, be it KFC or drugs, and people will do whatever just to get their fix. The men of the town were fully prepared to effectively give themselves what could easily become an incurable fatal disease just to get high. And the medicinal guy made a good if prophetic point.
Can't we skip all this and just make pot legal?
He is going to eat those words with a bag of Fritos and a Browie.
What does she do? She's super rich. But what does she do? She's totally spoiled and snobby. What does she do?
She's a
Something that might become a running theme with this list is South Park is a snapshot of what life was like back when the episode premiered. As a result, it generally carries the sentiments of what we thought back then. True, sometimes they unknowingly get the episode right, like they did with Britney's new look, but other times it can be a bit harder to watch and think, oh, we did that. This episode sees Paris Hilton come to South Park to open one of her stores, which encourages little girls to basically dress and act like hookers.
Hey, check it out! The new Paris Hilton perfume, Skank!
skank.
As they find out the hard way, Paris isn't a beacon of support for women, but rather a rich, spoiled idiot who drinks and huffs and can likely live off of nothing but creamy goo.
Sorry if I'm a little spent. I did a whole lot of partying last night with a lot of different guys.
Her and Tom Brady both. She also treats her pets so badly that they unalive themselves to end the torment, almost including Butters. That is, until she challenges Mr. Slave to a competition to see who's the biggest W word. It ends up in his Lemmy-Winks tunnel.
Paris, you must find your way out of this place or you will surely die.
What?
If you weren't around for it, Paris Hilton was known for starting the trend of celebrities who are famous for the sake of being famous, as she was one of the heiresses of the Hilton hotels. Honestly, to some degree, Paris was like proto-Kim Kardashian. She was in reality shows like The Simple Life and got into all sorts of legal trouble. Of course, this episode rips on her and ends with the lesson that you shouldn't admire her as a role model and just let little girls be little girls.
Parents, if you don't teach your children that people like Paris Hilton are supposed to be despised, where are they gonna learn it? You have to be the ones to make sure your daughters aren't looking up to the wrong people.
Matt and Trey have made the point that outside of people like Barbara Streisand, they don't hate that many celebrities and only use them to make an episode funny. Like, they don't hate Kathy Lee Gifford, they just needed somebody for Garrison to despise. However, Paris is apparently one of the few people they openly hate. It did not help that she said she was flattered by the episode, which only made them hate her more. Now, I'm not gonna say this episode doesn't have a good lesson, especially nowadays, but watching it can be a little hard knowing what we know now. In recent years, Paris has successfully rebranded her image and came out and said she wasn't in the best state of mind when this episode premiered. For example, Paris became infamous for a tape of her doing adult activities and it got leaked, which was not her doing. Not to mention, she was sent to a boarding school where she was subjected to SA and because of that, suffered from depression and other mental health problems for years, especially during the height of her popularity. You know, when this episode came out. Knowing this, some of what they say could be a little hard to stomach depending on who you are. Imagine if, instead of Britney's new look, making the point that the media wasn't doing her mental health any favors and were possibly even responsible for some of her dangerous behavior, they said that the bullying and the stalking was a good thing.
It's not just Paris. Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Tara Reid, they're all stupid spoiled.
Oh hey, only reason reason Video Playset is so low on the list is because of a combo of stiff competition and Paris's own response. I don't know, I feel like if the person in question wasn't as hurt by it as they should be, it's a little easier to laugh at. Now, I'm not gonna say whether or not I think Paris is a good person in spite of everything that happened, but some of you guys did put it a good way in my comment section. It can just as easily feel like they're kicking somebody when they're down. But that's South Park for you.
The tobacco company won't give us the kid. And do you know why? Because they know that if they give us that kid, then we'll kill him. Wait a minute, what?
Wow. Do not know what to say about this one. I was this close to not including it. I am so confused. On the one hand, I agree that while I think smoking is terrible, it's ultimately still your decision. If you want to have tar lungs and emphysema, go ahead. If you're in Atlantic City or Vegas and you want to brave the smoking section, all power to you. Just make sure you aren't doing it in front of kids or violating any rules or laws. Okay, bro? Plus, I think it's hilarious that the parents were more freaked out that the kids were smoking over the fact that they, burned down the school.
The boys were caught smoking.
Smoking?
Mom! Dad, it was just...
I don't have a son!
At the same time, I also sort of appreciate the point they make by creating that comparison between smoking and junk food.
Apparently, people still don't understand how bad smoking is for them. Don't they know how dangerous it is to their health?
Even if it freaks me the F out every time, because I love junk food. It's not my fault DoorDash has an insanely good membership and lots of deals, and I live in a city. However, the main reason I decided to add this episode is because it espouses another belief of Matt and Trey that hasn't exactly stood the test of time. Secondhand smoke. The episode says that secondhand smoke doesn't kill. It's just a lie made up by anti-smoking companies to control what other people do.
We go state to state and do things like use bogus studies and make expensive commercials.
To the point where they try to kill Cartman with a cupcake to make him a martyr for their cause.
Just eat this one cupcake. It has sprinkles.
I'm not eating the cupcake.
Isn't Sprinkles Blues' little brother? From Blue's Clues? Did you kill Sprinkles and turn him into a cupcake? But honestly, the fascism comparison isn't as far-fetched as you might think. At a time when the King of England was advised to smoke as much as possible to alleviate his stutter, Hitler made the first anti-smoking laws. I don't know why he did it, and I don't know if Matt and Trey knew that going in, but hey, it's worth a comparison. If anybody knows why that happened, could you comment down below? I love feedback.
The truth is there's no hard evidence that secondhand smoke can kill, but we believe it's okay to lie about it as long as it gets people to stop smoking.
Well, that makes sense.
Guys, there have been plenty of studies that show that secondhand smoke kills. It's a known fact nowadays that secondhand smoke is dangerous. Even back then, I'm pretty sure it was well documented. I think we knew as far back as the 80s there was a connection. What the hell? If anything, I think the episode should have made fun of the butt out people, but they pretty much disappear after Act 1.
If you don't smoke, you can grow up to be just like us!
The terrible presentation made them want to smoke, not the tobacco companies. It could have been like My Future Self and Me. Wow, I really love this episode for some reason. My Future Self and Me, not Butt Out. Butt Out's occasionally funny, but eh. So I should have pointed it out in the honorable mention section, but another recurring theme will be behind the scenes remorse. Trey Parker used to like Rob Reiner's earlier movies, and one of them was Spinal Tap, which he cited as a major influence. He just did not like how Rob Reiner was lobbying for various causes. Thankfully, much like Paris, Rob took it in good spirits, saying that while he appreciated the portrayal and thought the episode was hilarious, he wasn't that fat. His words, not mine. At least he still has his precious goo.
We made 10 million theoretical dollars.
Theoretical dollars? What am I supposed to do with that? You little time wasters!
Hey, we worked really hard to get this theoretical money.
Okay, this episode hits me in a personal way, like a very personal way. If you've ever wondered what's my least favorite South Park episode, it's this one. Kinda like the Tiki episode from Bob's Burgers, or the Doggy Poo episode from King of the Hill. I cannot get behind its message, no matter how much I try. And I resent the episode on that principle alone. Canada on Strike is meant to be a satire on two things. YouTube back when it was first starting out, and it was mostly limited to short viral clips, and the 2007 to 2008 writer's strike. Canada does not feel respected by the rest of the world, and led by Stephen Aboutman and the WGA, aka the World Canadian Bureau, obviously, strike for more money.
You better figure out a way to get us our fair amount of money, and until you come back with a solid fair number, I'm finished talking to you. Don't worry. This is how negotiating works.
As a knock-on-wood effect, television begins to suck, as it's nothing but reruns. The boys phone up Stephen Aboutman and negotiate a deal where they'll make hypothetical money through YouTube and give it to the WGA. And they'll do it through Butters' rendition of what in my butt. Up to this point, it's pretty okay. Nothing special, just normal South Park. However, this is where I begin to hate the episode. On the one end, they do a good job of showing a lot of the YouTube videos from the time. It made me feel so old, but unlike usual, in a kind of fun way. Like nostalgia.
And the internet sensation Cute Sneezing Panda.
I still remember how they would not let 7-year-old me watch YouTube because they thought it was bad. And look at me now. The episode says that YouTube is meaningless as a career, especially through Kyle's speech.
While the internet is new and exciting for creative people, it hasn't matured as a distribution mechanism. It will be a few years before digital distribution of media on the internet can be monetized to an extent that necessitates content producers to forego their fair value in more traditional media.
Okay, I agree that nowadays you can't exactly make money on YouTube solely because of one 15-second viral clip. I mean, if it's a short, you probably could, but not a normal one. Anyhow, that's not the point. Internet fame is fickle, I'll fully admit. As a YouTuber, your income is more dependent on watch hours than views, as watch hours determine how many ads the viewer will watch. To any of my fans who want to make vlogs or video essays, make it at least 10 to 15 minutes and gradually build from there. Ever wonder why I make my videos at least 40 minutes now? Although I think it goes without saying that it's very possible to make money on YouTube. Many people do it. I do it. True, it takes a while for many people, and I won't lie, you need a bit of dedication and sometimes luck, but it happens. And yeah, for many people, you likely won't reach Mr. Beast or Logan Paul levels of income or fame, but it's still a fun hobby you can profit off of. And if AdSense isn't your style, there's other methods, sponsorships, Patreon, merchandise. The point is, this episode really has aged. Like, I think they actually acknowledge it in a later episode where they make fun of PewDiePie, and they actually went through the effort to get him to guest star.
How's it going, bros? My name's PewDiePie. We're playing Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Here we go.
And like usual, Cartman rips him off.
Hey bros, what's going on? This is Cartman. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because subscribing makes you feel good.
If we just did this list based on my level of disappointment, it would probably be number 1, but it's not, and I try to be fair. Let's keep things moving right along.
Hey, I'm gonna take your rooster and put it in this bag where it will flourish or expire depending on fate. Are those good moral values?
I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
No, Pokemon is not a phase, Matt and Trey. The fudge is wrong with you. Anyhow, if you couldn't already guess it, the episode makes fun of the Pokemon craze from the 90s. Pokemon is a massive franchise from Japan, which I have to sort of limit how I talk about it because of fair use. Typically, a Pokemon game will go like this. A player goes on a journey to capture Pokemon, defeat gyms in order to win badges, and ultimately defeat the champion and become a Pokemon master, while also doing other things like catching all the Pokemon or completing the Pokédex. Pokemon became a massive cash cow with an anime series that runs to this day, tons of merchandise, several apps, and all kinds of wonderful things. But when it came to the States in the 90s, it had to be seen to be believed.
This is a Chinpokomon comp.
Chinpokomon is what we strive to be in our hearts. Our hearts.
You just had to be around for it, man. I wasn't even born. The show makes Pokemon out to be a franchise whose main purpose is to get parents to buy as much as possible, as shown in the theme song. And to brainwash the kids into becoming soldiers for the Japanese army. I forgot to mention that part.
What the? What the?
Fun fact, Trey Parker majored in Japanese in college, speaks the language fluently, and regularly travels to Japan. Outside of the classroom scene, apparently all the Japanese in the episode is correct.
Chuhachi is 18, Garrison-san.
For the last time, my name is not Garrison-san, alright? And this is not Hat-san.
I've seen some people hand-wave it as, oh, they don't respect Garrison or Mr. Hat, so they don't call them the right things. I don't think I exactly have to say why this episode got chosen if I haven't already. Therefore, to pass the time until I get to number 5, I'm gonna play Pokemon Go. Does that work well for you guys? Ooh, my Gilmore will soon evolve into a Gabite, and hopefully I will have a Garchomp before long. Cynthia has a Garchomp, and I love her fashion sense.
I offer to give AIDS to kids and everyone wants me dead. What's wrong with AIDS? Why doesn't anyone want me to give them AIDS?
Oh boy, Jared and his salty mayo footlong. Nobody likes mayo, Jared, especially me, but maybe your footlong is actually a 6-inch. Believe it or not, there was a bit of a behind-the-scenes debate about which episode would be number 5, Jared or Chinpokomon. Chinpokomon makes fun of a franchise by saying it'll be dated in a few years, when that clearly isn't the case, whereas Jared only makes fun of one person. But Jared beat out Chinpokomon for a simple reason. The stuff Jared got up to after this episode aired. Frankly, outside of the Butters plotline, which makes me nauseous, I still find the first plot hilarious to some degree. But I know for many people, they don't feel the same way, and it's borderline unwatchable for them. Anyhow, back in the day, there used to be a spokesman for Subway.
Did you just use a term that excludes women from an occupation?
PC principal, I am a cisgendered woman, and Cartman does not offend me. Maybe you are the problem. Maybe you need to look in the mirror, you intolerant, racist, sexist, redneck fool. Regardless, Subway's biggest spokesman, was Jared Vogel. Jared claimed in the commercials that he used to be morbidly obese, but lost 245 pounds by eating nothing but Subway. The truth is a little more complicated than that.
It says I only ate a half-size lean turkey sandwich with no mustard or mayo or anything like that.
I actually had research for this section because I was really curious. True, Jared did lose the weight by eating Subway sandwiches, but he only had a lean turkey footlong, a veggie sandwich, and he exercised more. Besides, it wasn't just the sandwiches. He cut out any non-Subway fast food, period. However, the story worked and he got signed up by Subway and received a bunch of sponsorships and deals. He even repeated the diet when he gained 40 pounds and needed to lose it in time for his wedding. Jared comes to South Park where he tells the boys his secret for weight loss.
But the way that I lost so much weight was that I got AIDS.
Don't worry, Kyle, you'll get it soon enough. Really should have rephrased that video better, or at least done proper research. But oh god, Jared, boys, run, do not walk. Cartman especially.
Scott is my personal trainer and Tyler is my dietitian. Hello.
Oh, AIDS, AIDS.
Yeah, hooray for AIDS!
Oh, that makes more sense. The boys say that Jared is lying to people about his weight loss strategy, and that could be especially dangerous. Feeling guilty, Jared tries to tell other people that he has AIDS, like his girlfriend and later Subway. To nobody's surprise, Jared loses everything and becomes a pariah.
With AIDS, you can literally watch the fat melt away! And with the proper mix of AIDS and Subway sandwiches, anything is possible.
You might be asking yourself, oh kitty, what's the harm done? And why is it when you do this voice, it always sounds like this? I don't know, viewer. I don't know. But in recent years, after this episode aired, things got worse for Jared. Starting in 2007, allegations came out that Jared made lewd comments to middle school-aged girls. Not only that, but in 2015, Jared was found by the FBI to be in possession of CSAM, the fancy legal term for I think you can guess. He pleaded guilty to child tourism and CSAM charges and was sentenced to 15 years in prison and 8 months. Wow. Sucks, right? Explains his love of mayo, right? And also, Subway sandwiches were possibly Freudian in nature to him. I guess that's ultimately why this episode beat out Chinpokomon. For most people, that episode is dated, but in a way that's still fun to watch. After all, snapshot, click, click. This episode, many people cannot watch in good conscience, especially with the facts in mind, and how the episode treats him as some sort of misguided beacon. With those facts in mind, let's watch the episode. Jared gets fired from Subway for saying he has AIDS, and tries to promote an AIDS for Everyone Foundation to make up for his failings.
I'm gonna seek out all the underprivileged and hungry children of the world, and I'm going to give them AIDS myself!
Jared, no, you don't have to do that.
It is my hope that every beautiful child on this earth has AIDS by next month. AIDS for everyone!
Jared, stop. The town decides to execute him for being a huge perv, like a decade ahead of time. And good on them for doing something. Only for the boys to exonerate him by clearing up the misunderstanding.
Oh, we're so sorry, Jared. No, it was my fault. I can't believe I didn't even think of what I was saying.
I think what's funny about this episode is the show is open about how stuff changes. When the PC fraternity opens in 2015, Cartman tries to get them to leave by unleashing Jared Bogle himself.
The Syrian refugee children are in. Send in Jared.
Not to mention, I also think Jared is a boss for one of the video games. I don't know, I did not get to that level. Oh well, I'm gonna go have a sandwich. This section is brought to you by Jane Smith of Everytown, Random City, First Planet from the Sun, and viewers like you. This one hurts. This one hurts my heart worse than Ajita, but I have to talk about it. Granted, I already made a whole video on it, but if you want a SparkNotes version, let's talk about it here. Basically, South Park made an episode that ridiculed Scientology, called Trapped in the Closet. And it also made fun of people connected to the church, like John Travolta and Tom Cruise and R. Kelly.
And so I pull out my gun!
You know, maybe I should have included the episode in the honorable mention section, but it's too late now. Stan is talked into getting audited by the Church of Scientology. The wrong kind of audit, because any kind of audit is evil and scary. Because of his high audit score, they think he's the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. Stan discovers that Scientology is a giant global scam, and that's why they are directly across the street from Hamilton, and no, I'm not kidding. And the current head of the church wants to use him as a mouthpiece to make more money.
If those people all think you're the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard, then they'll all buy your new writings, and you and I together will make $3 million!
Dude, maybe Steven and the WGA should have partnered with them. Stan tries to come clean at the end, but he gets threatened with suing.
I'm gonna sue you too!
Well, fine, go ahead and sue me.
I will! I'll sue you in England! You are so sued, kid!
Well, go on then, sue me!
What you need to know is Isaac Hayes, the voice of Chef, was a Scientologist himself, to the point where, when Timmy 2000 aired, he appreciated what they said about Ritalin, since Scientology does not believe in therapy or psychology of any kind, thinking it's barbaric. Yeah, okay. Oh god. No, I cursed out the church. Good thing they know that I'm Jane Everywoman. They can't sue me. After this episode aired, he quit the show, mentioning how offended he was by their views. In response, Matt and Trey wrote the season 10 premiere, The Return of Chef, which was them telling the public about the situation from their perspective. Chef finds himself bored by life in South Park, until one day, he discovers a flyer for the Super Adventure Club, which promises a life of fun escapades. He leaves town, potentially forever, in order to find himself. Later, he returns, telling everybody that he found a way to still stay loyal to the Super Adventure Club while living in South Park with his friends.
Buddy, I'm sure Chef would like a little time to get moved back in.
That's right. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Notice his lines? Well, that's not exactly Isaac, sort of. I mean, I guess it is him technically, but not really. It's like Sugalite in the later episodes of SU, because I don't know why they could not just replace Nicki Minaj. They did it for Bismuth.
She's not actually in this episode. Do we still have to pay her? Yes? Fair enough.
Instead, they used a bunch of lines from previous episodes and crudely spliced them together. They're used to determine his mental state.
Oh, really? Well, let's all go home and make love.
No, Chef, we don't want to make love to you.
Part of me still thinks that in universe it's meant to be a cry for help. Chef returns to his usual position, but the kids find that he's become a giant perv who hits on the students.
How's it going?
Good.
Well, how about I meet you boys after work and we can make love?
Maybe part of adventuring means hanging out with Jimmy Seville and Jared. The boys go to the Super Adventure Club for answers, only to find that they're giant pervs themselves, and they brainwash Chef.
Well, we thought you went exploring and, hunting and stuff.
No, that's the Adventure Club. We're the Super Adventure Club.
I mean, I hate to say it, but it was his fault he picked the Super Adventure Club, not the Adventure Club. Ever heard of research? According to the Fruity Little Club, as Kyle calls them, an adult has to boink a child to gain immortality. Ew. And they do so by traveling to the most unexplored, treacherous places, likely with no laws or oversight of any kind, and then they have a little snack, if you know what I mean, Jelly Bean.
We're always looking for kids to have with on the plane rides over to these places. So how would you all like to join the Super Adventure Club?
No!
To help Chef, the boys try to undo the brainwashing, and nearly succeed, at least until he gets captured by the Super Adventure Club. He's freed once again, but gets lured back at the 11th hour.
Chef, we love you.
I'm sorry, children.
Unfortunately, to everybody's shock, Chef dies in a vicious manner, and his corpse is taken back and repurposed by the Super Adventure Club, where he spends the rest of his days as a child touching Atopodent. Right? Isn't that how you say it?
And for dessert, how would you children like to suck on my chocolate salty balls?
The reason this hurts is it came out years later that Isaac did not quit of his own accord. He had a stroke and basically went out cold for a few days straight. When he was unable to protest, the church and his agent, who was also a Scientologist, quit on his behalf. I'm sure Isaac might have been disappointed with Trapped in the Closet, but probably not enough to quit. He had no clue what happened until he woke up, and by that point, the damage was done and he was forced into accepting it. So yeah, knowing this wasn't his choice, it hurts watching this episode. I especially wonder what Matt and Trey thought after the truth came out. On the bright side, there is the eulogy Kyle gives, which is quite poignant.
So you see, we shouldn't be mad at Chef for leaving us. We should be mad at that Fruity Little Club for scrambling his brains.
Chef, or Isaac, might have done certain things, to their knowledge, and everybody might have been confused on how they feel about him, or about his absence, but at the end of the day, he was still their friend, and it's never easy to mourn a loss like that. At least be glad Chef got a proper goodbye. And while Darth Chef is still a really sad fate for such an amazing character, I still see it as their way of saying, Isaac, if you ever want to lead that Fruity Little Club, we'll be happy to have you back. Seriously, when Mary Kay Bergman, the only goodbye she got was an episode dedicated to her. And for a few episodes after, they could not bring themselves to recast her, so they just did the voices or cut out female characters altogether. I don't know, there actually is a really interesting interview about this. You guys should check it out.
Mr. Sandwich, do you believe that your opponent will gain any momentum from this poll?
I'm sure that, like me, Giant realizes that polls are never the final answer.
One of the reasons I'm disappointed South Park only airs in February is there isn't that much interesting stuff to talk about. I mean, they did have a Valentine's Day episode, and they did have a St. Patrick's Day episode. That's like the only two big ones. Well, I mean, besides Easter, but only like 3. Besides that, stuff usually comes to a standstill because it's so freaking cold or rainy. With fall, there's countless things you can do. Back to school, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Columbus Day, and especially election season. Normally, whenever South Park does an election episode, they usually get it right, as they follow the popular opinion or wait until after things are all said and done to give their 2 cents. In 2016, it was generally accepted that Hillary Clinton would win the election. I think there was like only one dude who said she wouldn't, a college professor, but nobody listened. Season 20 was serialized, with several different plots working in tandem. The central theme was of course the election. While such storylines are probably made up as they go along, there was the general assumption that Clinton would win, and the ending was planned with this result in mind. However, as we all know, Trump won instead, and they quickly had to change pace for better or for worse. Instead of working against the Manbearpigs, Garrison suddenly becomes brainwashed by them and leaned more into becoming the show's version of Trump, as he screwed the Canadian version to death.
Hey, what the? Hey, that pokes, buddy.
More focus gets put on the Troll Trace plotline, not the gender war that was building up. The one thing that makes me mad is there's like zero resolution to Randy getting possessed and then puking member berries.
Dad, what the hell is wrong with you?
What was supposed to happen? Was he gonna brainwash the whole town? Next we see him, he's completely normal. Originally, the episode that was meant to air the day after the election was The Very First Gentleman, which would have focused on Bill Clinton. In the US, the spouse of the president is the first lady, and if we ever were to have a female president, her spouse would be the first gentleman. Like usual, I will give credit where credit is due. Immense credit in this case. South Park completely redid an episode with less than a day to spare, and they got it out on time. Likely by the skin of their teeth, but they got it out. Now that's dedication. However, I think, like everybody, I should say, why did they not have a backup plan? I guess it's a little harder to do since they're meant to talk about current events, but since they had a story, they should have known something could have happened.
Hello, boys! It's me, your teacher, Mrs. Garrison. I'm experiencing womanhood for the first time in my life. See you in class!
Okay, I knew I was only avoiding this for so long. I know it's a controversial topic, and I know I'm a PC baby by reiterating it, but it has to be said. South Park normally has good rep in a way that's offensive while also being relatable and or accepting. I have anxiety, like full-on disorder, and I love Tweak. I know plenty of viewers who are black and they love Tolkien, or Jewish viewers who love Kyle. And on my disabilities video, to this day, I get comments from many viewers who themselves are disabled and love Timmy and Jimmy, or even Nathan and Mimsy. South Park is that one show you would not expect when it comes to this type of thing, but they usually have great LGBT rep. Big Gay Al and Mr. Slave are stereotypes, but they have their own characters and they're pretty entertaining without seeming offensive. They're basically Jasper Griffin but done right. However, South Park copies Family Guy in one particular way. They usually fail when it comes to the T part of LGBT. It all started in Mr. Garrison's fancy new vase, okay? Vase. He bought a vase. Garrison decides to get gender affirmation surgery and transitions to Janet, a change that remains for the next several seasons.
Do I look like a woman? Pretty much.
It amazes me though that he was able to get the surgery practically spur of the moment. Years ago, wasn't it that you had to live as your chosen gender for some time, or get diagnosed by a shrink, or at least have the money to back it up, which is why for many people they prefer hormones? I don't know. At first they handled this change well. Gerald doesn't like the idea of the boys' teacher being trans, thinking they won't be able to explain it to them. But Sheila manages to do it in a way that Kyle understands, without talking down to him.
They feel like there's somebody trapped in another person's body, and so they can have a surgery that makes them more into the person they see themselves as.
See? Really good. On top of that, Janet never really discussed the procedure with Mr. Slave, and he breaks up with her because he's incompatible.
Don't you even care that I was suffering? I wasn't happy the way I was.
It's great that you feel better, but you never stop to think about how the people around you would feel.
Honestly, this is what the episode should have been about. It would have been interesting to explore, and maybe they could have done it better than Family Guy. Then Janet begins to rock the boat. To her surprise, Janet does not get her period and believes it's because she's pregnant.
Yeah, I've got one growing inside me. Now you're gonna scramble its brains or just vacuum it out?
Janet, I'm sure you know how reproduction works, right? You're a school teacher, right? And you taught for kindergarten, right? You've tried out poontang, right? She goes to the doctor, wanting to have the fetus's brain scrambled out of her like eggs, only to learn that she has no eggs of her own.
This would mean I'm not really a woman. I'm just a guy with a mutilated...
Basically, yes.
Okay, to some degree, I hate to say it, but I get what they're trying to say. Or at least do, in a way, in a sense. Just the way they say it feels kinda wrong. It's not like they're saying, yeah, this is true, but people want this, so you should still accept them for it. It's, nope, you're not a real woman, you just look like one. Sorry, Charlie. Good luck getting away with that in 2023, J.K. Rowling. Surprised that's not an episode yet. The episode also has a subplot where Kyle learns he can't play basketball because he's Jewish. Following in Janet's lead, he gets surgery to change his race. What? Gerald later tries to do the same by changing to a dolphin.
He's a Jewish dolphin. A Jewfin.
Okay, for as much as I don't like the episode, mostly because it's boring, not because I think it's offensive, this somehow makes me laugh every single time. However, as he learns at the end of the episode, the doctor did not make him an African American. He just made him look like one. Same goes for Gerald, and Garrison can transition back for several more seasons because the doctor used her huevos to make Kyle's knees. Ouch. Okay, I hate to say it, but changing your race via cosmetic surgery honestly could have been a full-on episode. Ever heard of people who pass or pretend to be other races? Imagine they took that to a logical extreme. Wasn't there Rachel Dolezal, born to white parents but continues to self-identify as black? Oh wait, she was after this episode. They missed their chance. I think the main problem with this plotline, or rather whenever they try to do this, is the show does not fully explain their points. As a result, this episode comes off as another bigoted, transphobic episode from the early 2000s. However, there are times when this is a little excusable, as weird as it is to say. First is Eek a Mouse. Yes, it's totally called Eek a Mouse. Garrison believes the transition is a mistake, but thanks to stem cell therapy, can get the surgery. True, Garrison uses terms like, oh, I'm not a real woman, or something like that. But once again, Garrison is already known for being incredibly intolerant.
Because the key difference between men and women is that women can have babies. My wife had ovarian cancer, so she can't have babies. Well then get an AIDS test, Thompson, cause your wife's a dude.
Guys, come on, this is clearly a joke. Another time I thought they did this right was the sissy, which makes fun of bathroom laws. Not to admit to committing a crime myself, but one time on a field trip to Duke University, back when they first made this law, I went to a smash burger and I used the men's restroom. I'm such a rebel. Wanting to get his own bathroom, Cartman pretends to be trans. God, I wish I had my own bathroom. I'm shy. This time, it works. For one, they properly explain the difference.
Cisgender. It's the politically correct name for people who aren't transgender.
And honestly, this is where I learned about the difference. And the show does plenty of Cartman pretends to be sick, unwell, whatever, to get something or use it as an excuse for attention or laziness.
You don't even know what that means. Yeah, it means I live a life of torture and confusion because society sees me as a boy, but I'm really a girl.
Like usual, this backfires on him, because by his logic, anybody can either cross-dress using a little accessory, or change their name, and get to use the bathroom he forced the school to build for him, like Wendy did as Wendell. Then there's the more recent example, Bored Girls, which is another one I get complaints about, as it makes fun of transgender athletes. Strong woman is competing in a competition of athletic strength, only for her hard work to be for nothing because of a competitor, Heather Swanson.
I can't tell you how free I feel now that I've started identifying as a woman.
Heather is trans, having come out recently, and to make things more awkward, she and Strong Woman used to date.
Blade Jaggert, she is my ex-boyfriend. When I finally broke up with him, he said one day he was going to get me back.
Heather uses her newfound fame to win championship after championship, including the one Strong Woman attended, and break athletic records. Honestly, I don't think the episode is that bad. Like usual, they did not make their points clear enough. The episode is meant to challenge PC principle, and it works well on that front. It just felt like they were saying their opinion on Heather applied to what they thought about all transgender athletes. Still, it's not like it's unfixable. Maybe Strong Woman is competing with other trans women, all of whom could hate Heather. Unlike Heather, they actually struggled with their gender identities and being accepted by athletic associations and the public, and they had to go through so many hurdles just to get to where they were. And that's all for nothing because they're pushed aside by Heather.
Hope I can motivate little girls out there. Motivate them to understand that I will beat them at any sport they try.
Shut up, Heather. You knew that was coming. Just as Jimmy was called an Uncle Abel because he did not think the R word was that problematic, they could be seen in a similar light. It would be a way for them to say, we're not transphobic, we're just trying to get PC Principal's goat. That's what they did with the sissy. Oh well, the 2016 season was okay besides a few episodes, and the only impact was Garrison wasn't in the show for a little while. This one is higher up, simply because it's both more contentious, it happens constantly, and they rarely if ever get it right. But it's still just number 2. Now it's time for the big one.
You just used Manbearpig as a way to get attention for yourself because you're a loser!
You're sorry for making fun of me.
We're sorry for making fun of you.
That didn't sound serial at all.
Yep, you knew this was coming. Even before I made the list and before you clicked on the video, you knew it was gonna be somewhere. Believe me, this was not a tough choice. It was always going to be number 1. South Park has a terrible track record when it comes to their viewpoints on global warming. Saying it's made up by environmentalists or science is wrong. I mean, considering their opinions on secondhand smoke, can you really blame them? Sometimes they will stop an episode for minutes on end just to espouse this viewpoint. Like in Goobax, when the rednecks try to figure out how to stop the time travelers, and one dude thinks they should try to speed up global warming.
Global warming could bring on like a climate shift or something.
And the episode grinds to a screeching halt just so this other dude, okay, I really forget his name. I think it's Skeeter, but I really don't think it is. Just so he can get to be Matt and Trey's mouthpiece.
Even if global warming were real, which all proven scientific data shows it isn't, it would take millions of years for a climate shift to happen.
Yeah, he was an intolerant, backward, podum, white trash, idiotic redneck. Strangely, this is like the one time it works. Then there's Manbearpig, Al Gore, former VP of the US, and nearly the president.
I was almost president!
Comes to South Park to talk about his new documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. The documentary talks about global warming, the dangers that'll come from it, and went on to win 2 Oscars. In its place, since this is South Park, Al Gore discusses Manbearpig and endangers the boys by trying to prove that Manbearpig is real.
They're already dead, and you listen to me? They got attacked by Manbearpig, and Manbearpig leaves nobody alive. I'm super serial! Nobody will listen to me, I'm serial!
But guys, this is a world where Jesus and Satan, live, so theoretically, couldn't there be a Manbearpig? The episode makes Al Gore out, and yeah, they always call him Al Gore, not just Al or Mr. Gore, to be an attention-seeking madman who will do whatever just to keep the spotlight on himself. And he is super serial.
I hope now you boys see that this is totally serial.
What kind of cereal? Lucky Charms?
Everyone will say, "Thank you, Al Gore. You're super awesome." The end.
The thing is, it's common knowledge nowadays that global warming is real, and we're feeling the knock on what effects that were warned to us. Like wildfires, hotter winters and summers, mass flooding, all that fun stuff. The reason this plotline is number 1 compared to everything else, Matt and Trey owned up to it. Not outside the show, in universe. In the previous entries, yes, they owned up to it, but in a way where the show did not really have to acknowledge it as being wrong. Like, they didn't say, oh yeah, it was a mistake to make an episode all about Jared Fogle. They just had Jared be a creepy dude. Or they apologized off the books, especially in interviews or in commentaries. Years later, in one episode, well actually two, they fully apologized to Al Gore. Turns out in the Manbearpig two-parter, Time to Get Cereal, and Nobody Got Cereal, Manbearpig is real. What? I mean, come on, seriously? And Al Gore was right all along. Now there's carnage and destruction, and things look absolutely bleak. They even go a step further and have a running gag where Al Gore will be seen as a creep or wrong, but then be proven right, especially in regards to Satan. That's probably my favorite moment.
You don't have a clue what you're doing.
We're saying?
Nothing. I'm sorry.
However, the way South Park apologizes is truly interesting. They make the point they were wrong, they own up to it, but they also say that Al Gore isn't a total saint. He just happened to be right about this one thing. In universe, he's still a weirdo attention seeker, and does stuff like forces the boys, and also Satan, to watch videos of his campaign rallies and whatnot, and waste their time instead of actually trying to find a solution.
There I am campaigning to be president. Oh look, it's me when I found out I lost the election. Boo!
At the end of the two-parter, Stan finds out that because Manbearpig is a demon, he can renegotiate a deal with him.
He says he'll never come back again, but we have to give up soy sauce and Red Dead Redemption 2.
Just plain rice?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But nobody is willing to give up anything. Really? Soy sauce? That just makes rice taste worse. So Manbearpig will return one day. I thought Manbearpig returned in one of the specials. Wait, that was like 4 years after, not 5. Oh wait, maybe he'll come back this season. Or, you know, like there's later specials. Oh god, my throat. Well then, this was my list, and a massive undertaking. I actually think this is my longest script to date, at 53 pages. And I hate to be cliche, but see, I learned something today. You see, it's true that many of these episodes have aged, some worse than others, but they're still important. It's fun to watch and think, wait, we used to think like that? Or life was like this back then? Remember when we all thought that YouTube was a sucker's game? And now for many people, including myself, it's practically a career. We used to do whatever we could to get our fixes. But now, depending on where you go, it's as easy as just going to a bar. You just show your ID and then you get what you need. Oh well, one can wonder and hope for a better tomorrow. I'm Kitty Monk and thank you for 50,000 subscribers. I will see you in 1 week. Wait, that outro doesn't feel right. Goodbye, viewers. Wishing you good mental health. No. Screw you guys. I'm going home. Which makes no sense because I'm actually recording this in my kitchen, but oh god.
Well, I guess we learned our lesson. No, we didn't, dude. No, we didn't.